everyone, and welcome to our Search Laboratory podcast, all around International Women's Day. I'm joined by some incredibly talented women. I myself am Nicola Winters. I head up the international department here at Search Labs, so a very unique role. I head up a team of all women, actually, but we are mother tongue linguists from around the globe, and we help sort of inject linguistic, cultural sort of knowledge into all of the advertising campaigns that we do. I'm joined here by Zoe. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm Zoe. I'm head of the digital PR team. Again, all women team, which is great. And yeah, we kind of look after all our digital PR clients and accounts and strategies and campaigns.
Brilliant.
And I'm Marie. I'm part of the paid social and programmatic teams, which we call PSP as well. And we're a little bit more diverse. So I think we've got 60% female and 40% male, but it varies a little bit. But yeah, I'm originally from France, so a bit international as well.
Lovely. So actually some really diverse roles there. It'd be really interesting for you guys to just tell us a little bit more about your career path, starting really from your education and how you got to where you are today. Zoe, do you want to sort of give us some insight?
Yeah, sure. So I did a Masters in PR and Strategic Communications in Leeds. Ended up staying in Leeds, loved the Masters, so it was amazing. Then I went to a really, really small traditional PR agency in Wetherby. There's actually only 4 of us, 4 women, and I worked there. I loved it. It was really nice just to kind of get into kind of the PR industry and world, but it's very, very different to what I do now. They were great, very supportive. Then I moved into SEO and digital PR, into like a big agency in town. I think there was probably around 40 in that agency. That's probably where I started experiencing, the workforce was 80% male. I think there was, maybe even 90%, there was around 3 women. One of which I was in the digital PR team. Quite a negative, toxic environment. First time I really kind of experienced kind of sexism and sexist comments, maybe about the way I looked, what I did the weekends, that kind of thing. It was actually ended up the receptionist telling me to leave and saying to get out of there because some of the men were treating me so badly. And then I moved to Search Labs and had, never looked back, and I've loved it ever since.
Wow, that seems like, both jobs were very different.
Very different, yeah.
From an all-female to then a very male.
Yeah.
Wow, how did you sort of overcome those challenges in that second job?
Probably didn't, to be honest, whilst I was there. It was very, very difficult, especially I was very young there as well. I hadn't obviously experienced that in my previous agency, so it was a huge shock. But I would actually say it was when I first moved to the PR team here, and I had an amazing manager, which was male, which I was a little bit hesitant about. Told him everything that had kind of happened, and he was very supportive, and built back up my confidence, I guess.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Really good to hear. Marie, what's your experience been like? Was there anything that you could sort of relate to there?
Sure, yeah. Well, that's interesting because I've got a bit of a similar experience. So I had my master's degree in France and then I moved to the UK. And it was really, really hard to find a job in the UK. So my master's was in marketing, but then I struggled to find a job in marketing, being an expat. So I fell into sales recruitment jobs. And the companies that I was working for were really like male-led, like very toxic. And yeah, I experienced a lot of sexism in the workplace as well, about not only the way you look, but the way you talk as well, like being French, obviously, etc. And yeah, it was very outrageous. And when looking back now, I'm like, how did I, bear with those comments? How did I even manage to be in that kind of environment? So I did that for 2 years, and then I started at Search Labs and said, like, never looked back. Been there 3 years now, and it's been amazing. But yeah, like I remember the first days at Search Lab, my manager being like really supportive and like, how are you finding it? I'm like, I was trying to prove myself, and I was like, I'm doing this, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. I just want to know how you are, how you are doing as a person in this environment. I'm like, wow, okay, good, I'm good. It was very different.
Yeah, I can imagine. Even myself, I've had a similar experience. One of the first jobs that I ever had was in professional services. So,
Right.
you know, a lot of tax, pensions and corporate stuff. And I worked in central London, and the sort of management structure there was all white, middle class, privately educated men. I'll be honest, I think I needed that experience. I think it strengthened me a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, you both sort of mentioned that Search Laboratory was a completely different environment. You know, we talked about some of the challenges. What would you say, Marie, has been your sort of biggest achievement in your whole career?
I think really finding back that confidence. So Zoe, you talked about obviously finding that confidence again, and I think it's a bit like plants, isn't it? When you give them like a nice environment, they grow more.
Yeah.
I think Search Lab has been this for me, where in those sort of sales recruitment jobs where it was very toxic, I didn't feel like I was becoming the best version of myself. But being at Search Lab, I became an account manager after 6 months in the company, which was a really big achievement for me. Being an account manager obviously like requires of like client facing, you know, talking a lot, etc. And I never felt that confident before that I could sort of lead a conversation in English, you know, and things like that, where now I feel really like I've grown a lot as a person. Like I would have never done this kind of thing before. So
Yeah, that's
definitely.
interesting.
I would probably say maybe some of like the brands and the opportunities we've had to kind of work on like certain campaigns and the kind of the effects and results that we've had on the back of them. So, you know, some of the campaigns that I can kind of spring to mind, we've had to be very like bold, very honest, and kind of breaking down certain like female taboos as well, and being, you know, one of the first brands in that industry, kind of starting that conversation and being disruptive. So I guess having kind of that opportunity and chance to do that through our work that we do every day.
Yeah, I see that. I think for me personally, one of the biggest achievements has also been my biggest challenge. I recently became a mother. And, you know, I think that coming back to work was equally as challenging as it was rewarding. I think something that I'm particularly proud of is when I did return to work after maternity leave, I think that I was a better person for becoming a mother. I stopped worrying about things that I shouldn't be worrying. I prioritise a lot better now. But also I think that it's sort of the support that I've received, you know, recognising sort of the flexibility that is needed to support mothers. You know, that's really benefited me because it's meant that I can still adhere to all of my work commitments, I can still be productive, but I know that I have that flexibility if needed, you know, to be there for my family when's needed. So yeah, very, really interesting. As I mentioned, this whole podcast is sort of celebrating, you know, women around the world for International Women's Day. And a big theme around this sort of awareness day at the moment has been this whole theme of inclusion. And I just wanted to know from you guys, because inclusion can mean so many different things to so many different people. Zoe, what does inclusion mean to you?
I guess it's that sense of kind of belonging and everyone kind of obviously being included. So kind of identifying maybe those smaller kind of minority groups or, you know, people that haven't always had like that kind of voice, and just making sure that everyone does feel like they have a voice and do belong.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's also this feeling of being heard, you know, like no matter where you come from or your gender or your ethnicity, you know, feeling heard and listened to as well.
Yes, I think, you know, directly managing a team of people from lots of different backgrounds, you know, their mother tongue language, totally different. It means that the way that they've been brought up, the sort of things that they watch on the TV, the things that they consume in the media, that can all change. And it's been a real learning curve for me, you know, but it's been something that I've tried to embrace. You know, what would you say in particular that Search Laboratory is sort of doing in this area to sort of help inspire that inclusion?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we're doing at the moment is growing the EDI initiative. So we've got a group, the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion group, And as part of that group, there's different subgroups. So, for example, then there's cultural subgroups, making sure that non-native speakers feel included at work. But there's also the women at work as well, for instance, making sure there's more female representation. So there's a lot of things that have been happening, in terms of female representation, but also that we're working at the moment. So, for example, there's the careers with babies kind of initiative, careers after babies, that we're working on. And this is really interesting because we have a lot of sort of female in maternity leave at the moment. So the fact that we're working, making sure that they come back to work and they have a safe place, I think that's really important.
Yeah, that sounds really sort of timely as well. Like you say, I myself am a mother. I feel already that I'm being represented, within that group, and sort of being listened to. And like you say, it could be from your different background, with different religions, things like that. Looking back, just staying with you, Marie, looking back to when you first started working, do you feel like, the workplace has become more inclusive as a result of the EDI?
Yeah, I think so. I think we showed a lot of initiatives and we've got a bit more diversity. Obviously, there's a 50-50 ratio in Search Lab in terms of like how many females and how many males, but it's not there yet. It's not perfect. Like some teams are predominantly females, like your teams, for instance. So, it's hard to reach perfection, but I definitely think there's more and more progress being made.
Yeah. Interesting that you mentioned about, we've got a 50-50 sort of gender split within the company. But, myself and Zoe, we've already alluded to the fact that we have a strong female presence within our teams. I personally have found that, particularly working with language, that we do see a lot more female candidates using their language skills to further their career.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, women in tech, we are 3 women working in tech, and I see a lot more opportunities coming up. Zoe, you yourself, you work within a PR department, predominantly female. How do you find that? How do you sort of navigate within it?
I love it. I mean, I'm very close to kind of all the girls in the team. We have a really, strong relationship. I do think it is nice to have diversity with the team. It creates a different dynamic, brings fresh perspective on things as well, because sometimes, when you kind of are thinking of different digital PR campaigns and topics in ideation, gender could play a part in the types of ideas that we kind of think of, or the perception that we have and opinions on those like topics and themes as well. So it's definitely something I encourage and would love to have more males on the team, and we obviously have in the past. It just at the moment that's how kind of our team sits. So yeah, and I think that like I was sort of saying, there does seem to be a bit of a trend that females use their language, their communication skills, and that's why PR in particular is sort of an ideal career path. Then when we look at sort of women on sort of board level, that's where there might still be just that little bit of ground to gain, let's just say. Now, Marie, I'm quite interested because France in particular leads the world in terms of women on boards. Now, they have this quota system rather than voluntary. So do you think that that's something that more nations should adopt?
Personally, I think so, because I think it comes from the fact that a lot of decision makers, like board people, are male. So obviously, when it comes to promotion, there will always be a bias if it's in a voluntary system. So I think until we get to that point where it's a 50-50 board representation, we should have this quota system that allows us to get more opportunities for female to be part of the decision making. So yeah, personally I think so.
We've talked a lot about how our working life has been affected by this sort of thing, but outside of work, what kind of things do you see happening in the world that prove that maybe we're not quite where we need to be just yet?
I mean, I'm bringing it back to work again. Part of obviously the PR team's job is we're constantly reading the news. We're monitoring the media for different things, and I think just the way that women are portrayed in the media, we have such a long way to go. I mean, take Queen Taylor Swift, for example.
Yes.
And, there's men have done a lot worse and got far less negative press than what she is getting over the past year, or especially now. And I think the media, someone who's so successful and is talented and is hardworking, they really bring them up, and then as soon as it's been a bit too much and that overexposed, it just completely want to tear them down. And the amount of backlash I've seen with her and Meghan Markle, happened to Anne Hathaway, happened to Jennifer Lawrence, all these so successful. It's you cannot be too successful.
Yeah.
And just the way that they portray them and what they're doing to them, it trickles down into culture, it trickles down into society, and then, everyone has such negative opinions on kind of women, and it is really harmful to girls and women.
You're put on the spot. If you're a woman and you're so successful, you are put on the spot. That's that's how it feels like. You can't be too successful, as you said. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think something, just a little story for you both, but when I keep coming back to the fact that I've become a mother, it's such a significant sort of life event though. And one of the things that I sort of noticed is, despite the fact that in our family I am the high earner, I work full-time hours as well, I am just naturally the default parent at all times. And so that's more of sort of a family life thing. But that sort of perception, it comes from a lot of places that surprise me. It's from my family, it's, from the nursery, and that's been quite a challenge.
Definitely. It brings up the topic of also, you're saying outside of work, what do we observe? It also brings up the topic of paternity, maternity leave, because I feel like there's a lot of inequalities in that. It is a very short time often for the father. I think we've got 2 weeks maternity leave for the father and around 6 months for the mother. So it brings us back to this traditional model where the woman is the one who takes care of the children and then the father is the one who provides. But why is that? Why do they only have 2 weeks? 2 weeks is nothing. It's like a holiday, if anything. So when you have a newborn, you probably want more than that, and it should be more equal in that sense.
And I know we're talking about sort of Women's Day today, but you're totally right there. It's sort of the conditions that we start a family within, then sort of influence and sort of reinforce that behaviour. I know that there's a lot of men out there who would love to spend more time with their newborn, with their family. But yeah, you're right, those kind of existing sort of structures sort of reinforce that message. Right, I don't want to just focus on the negative though. Come on, let's focus on the positive. Because there have been a lot of sort of positive movements, particularly in the last couple of years. But, what do you see happening in the world at the moment that, is a really sort of positive movement for women?
Something that I particularly liked reading recently is that Spain was one of the first countries to pass a law to sort of make it more official for companies to have menstrual leave. So I know some women, especially when it comes to endometrium. Sorry, I can't say that word. Endometriosis.
I can't say it either.
It's so hard to say.
Endometriosis.
Yeah.
Representing women, darling. We can't even say that.
It's really hard to say.
A lot of women who suffer from their menstrual leave, sometimes they feel a bit ashamed or embarrassed to sort of take a day off or, take sick leave for that. So the fact that there's been a law passed officially to recognise that, I think, is a big progress.
Wow, that's really progressive. Yeah. What about you, Zoe?
I mean, we can't have the International Women's Day podcast without talking about the Lionesses.
Oh, yes.
I think it's obviously, football is huge, the Euros was so much fun watching kind of Euro summer, but it was just so nice to get behind women and feel that it wasn't just kind of women celebrating that, it was like the whole country, and they got the kind of recognition and celebration that they deserve, and the media coverage as well. It was just, a really nice kind of big step forward in equality in sports.
Yeah, you're right. I myself am a massive football fan, and what I've actually loved witnessing over the past couple of years as well is, I don't support a very good team. I mean, we're Premier League, we're at the bottom. But yeah, it's been really good to sort of see in my family in particular my nieces having somebody to look up to, a sporting hero, and being able to go and watch them and stuff like that. It's been really nice to see, and I love it now. My son is 18 months old and he's already every Saturday in a football club. But I'm loving the female male ratio in his class at the minute. It's lovely to see. So just to wrap up, this has been a very interesting and insightful conversation. But I just wanted to finish with kind of a fun question, really. If you had to pick an International Women's Day hero, so someone who really has inspired you over the time, who would it be and why? Zoe, what did you say?
I would say my mum. Don't know if they need to be famous or not, but she's famous in my world anyway.
Yeah.
She's just like Superwoman, as I'm sure like many mums are, but I think you obviously take your parents for granted when you're growing up, but actually when you like in a full-time job and working and all the stresses of like adult life and your job and things, and you think, how on earth did they raise a child? And she was like on her own as well, having to do that, and still like even the things she does now, like how she can think of everything, and she's always right. Always. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to do it this way. I'm like, oh god, she was right again.
Oh yeah, my son says that about me in a few years' time. What about you, Marie?
Yeah, I'm going to copy Zoe and say my mum as well. She's also a single mother, and she's a self-made woman. Like, she come from a very humble background, so seeing her like coming from that background and being able to raise me on her own without family support and everything, I just think like, what else? Like, how more heroic can you be?
Oh, that's brilliant. That's obviously given you a great foundation as well for you to grow upon.
What's yours?
Yeah.
My mum. I would feel awful now if I didn't say that. No, I think that's an obvious one. I think that most women in my family do inspire me, but I don't know. My answer is I'm not fobbing it off, but it changes all the time. I think I'm inspired by lots of different people every day, and I hope that continues. I sound silly now, but I've got a person in my team who is just so passionate about what she does, and only this morning was I inspired by her, and so that's what I would sort of say is, yes, I think we've all got, sort of heroes that we look up to, but yeah,
the number of times I see a woman speaking her truth and I go, like, go queen, just go, like, it inspires you and it brings you that.
Yeah, that's it. I definitely feel like we're, women are supporting women maybe a lot more than when our mothers were raising us and things like that. So, yeah.
Shout out to our head of PR who's on maternity leave. She inspires me most days.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I needed to get that in there at the end.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that everybody found this interesting and hopefully inspiring as well. And yes, we will wrap up now. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.